so I'll just give you guys a like the general template of how it sounds like. So so it starts out with like a peong. Hanggang saan naabot ang 20 pesos mo? And then the scene sort of plays out, and then it's funny. And then it usually goes something like, for 20 pesos, pakiligin siya with new Cornetto Mango Tango. And then creamy mango ice cream with a crunchy chocolate tip. Something like that.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Speakeasy, a show on how the voice impacts life. My name is Albert Alliser. Some of you may not be aware, but I am an aspiring voice artist who wants to be more successful in the industry. Some of you may not know what a voice artist is. It's basically an artist getting hired for his or her voice to convey a message. This could be in the form of a TV or radio commercial, a movie trailer, an anime dub, and many, many more. In this episode, we'll be talking to a fellow voice artist. You might know of our guest's work from commercials. He is the voiceover for the RiteMED Magtanong TVC and the Kwentong Jollibee Valentine series. Let's check out this clip.
Hindi ko makakalimutan ang ngiti mo nung una kitang nakita. Naalala ko nun, sa Jollibee pa lang, sinabi ko na sa sarili ko, she's the one.
Ang RiteMED ay premium ang pagkakagawa sa presyong abot kaya.
Dahil gusto namin na bumaling kayo.
Without further ado, let's welcome Jona Paculan. Hi, Jona.
Hey Albert, musta?
Yeah. Thanks for coming into the show.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me, dude. This is but like I told you earlier, I mean, this sounds like a lot of fun. So I can't wait. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm doing this as a passion project, so it's a way for me to give more people the opportunity to learn more about voice acting and voice careers in general. Okay. So it's really a way. I don't think we had this growing up. We didn't have the YouTube exposure of real life people doing real life voice acting work.
Dude, when I was a kid, I didn't even know this job existed. So this is already a big step up. So kudos to you, man.
Yeah, thank you. So, kamusta naman during this quarantine period? How's life?
It's okay. I mean, it's it can get very stressful sometimes, especially if you have too much of the news lately, which that's something I personally struggle with. But it's been okay. I mean, the quarantine has really helped me reflect on things, and it's really pushed me to learn new things. So actually, ang dami ko na natutunan this quarantine.
Oh, perfect. Like, can you share with us like what kind of stuff you learned?
Well, apart from reading a good number of books, I've been learning to use my DAW, my audio software, to produce music. So I'm slowly transitioning into the digital age, and frankly, it's overdue. So I'm really glad for that time, and I'm really glad for this push.
Yeah.
For this push.
Yeah. A lot of us, including myself, I think, has had the opportunity to get their creative juices flowing during this period of lull, so to speak. I mean, it's not a lull for a lot of people, but I personally found myself in a lull. And kudos to you right back for having the chance to explore your music career.
Yeah. It's great.
Speaking of music careers, so you're in a band called Swallowed by the Whale.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that a biblical reference?
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's a little on the nose, no? It started out as like a project group. Back then it wasn't really a group, it was really just me. So and at the time parang I was looking for a name that was sort of indie. because I was a little because I was really into the indie sound and the indie scene back then. And this is like 2014, something like that. And at the time, the common band names then were names that were a little long, rather long, at least to me. So I was listening to bands like Telephone Tel Aviv or Minus the Bear, things that sort of that names that had that sort of pattern. So looking for a name that sort of, I guess, related to me, I, that's what I thought of. That's what I thought. Swallowed by the Whale.
Are you a religious person? Would you consider yourself one?
No. It just so happened that but I did grow up in a very religious family, and I do believe in God. But yeah, it was just a reference that it was the first reference that really came to me, so I just ran with it.
What's your or who is your favorite band? Who's the biggest inspiration for you?
Oh my gosh, that's very hard. My 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 musical influences have changed a lot in the past decade. Um, I guess if you were to, if you were really to go to the heart, to the root of my musical inspiration, I would have to say my main inspiration is this jazz vocalist named Bobby McFerrin. Have you heard of him?
Is he the "Don't Worry, Be Happy" guy?
He's the "Don't Worry, Be Happy"
Yeah,
guy.
okay.
Yeah, but he's most known for that. He's most known for that song. That's his most pop song, and it became a real thing. I guess it was like the Gangnam Style of his day, diba? So, oh wow, even Gangnam Style seems so old now. Anyway, uh, it's more. But yeah, but before that, and actually, he's not really a pop guy. He's a jazz vocalist, and his niche, his main selling point, so to speak, is he is an improvis. So it's jazz, so it's improvisation, and his main thing is he would go on stage, and it would literally just be him and the microphone. This was before loop machines. This was before the digital technology we have now. And then literally he would just sing, and he would accompany himself with just his voice. So parang he would he would sing the melody, and then at the same time switch the bass, and then the rhythm, and then maybe an accompaniment, basically trying to create a picture, the picture of an entire song, but with just one, I guess, to use a sound engineering parlance, with just one track. And
Oh,
that's what really attracted me to him. I found that so amazing, and I grew up trying to imitate him endlessly.
yeah. I didn't know he
Yeah.
had such a diverse performance level, if that's the right way to say it.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's an yeah. He really went through a lot of changes. I'm sorry, I'm fanboying a little, but I'm fanboying quite a bit. But yeah, if you that's what's amazing about him. And when I listen to that, that's when I really realized that I feel lucky that I grew up with that sort of image in my head, because I wasn't yeah, I sang, but I sing, but I never really thought of myself as just singing words or just singing, the things that we normally listen to. I
yeah.
grew up actually trying to imitate instruments,
Mhm.
or trying to capture a song with just one voice. And that was really a great kind of education for me.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with your performance for the Flight of the Bumblebee.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I got
That
to
that was
send it.
actually that was actually from him. He did it first, and then uh, me and my brother, we on the way to school, we would listen to it in the car, and then I just found myself imitating that.
Yeah.
And then little did I know that not a lot of people did that, and to this day, I think I'm the only person that I know who does that,
Yeah,
who does that song.
it's an elite crowd or an exclusive crowd to be in. So, well, let's go to voice acting. How did
Mhm.
you get started with voice acting?
but I started when I graduated in 2009. I started out working in an ad agency, and after one fateful month, it clearly was not for me. Uh, I managed to get a job at a studio. So at a studio as a sound engineer. So this is sound design. So this is Sound Design Studios. Shout out to Sound Design. And as I was working as a sound engineer, it's common practice that that, let's say, the producer, he or she's in a hurry, and maybe it's so what they tend to do is like, oh, Jonah, I need a voiceover for this. Can you try? And then I would often, because they found out that I could sing, and I guess maybe my voice is okay, it sounded okay, so I would they would get me to record voiceovers, singing, random character voices and stuff like that. And that's sort of where I got my start. And then one day, in one of those little instances, my boss uh, told me, "Hey, Jonah, why don't you record for this commercial?" And that commercial was Chowking. And I still remember what I said. Chowking Chinese rice specials. That was the specific Chowking product.
Yeah.
And I did that, and it got approved. And as they say, the rest is history. That's sort of where I start. That's sort of where my voiceover career began in earnest. I was like, okay, this kid can do voiceovers, and okay, let's just keep giving him. And it
I
started
can
from
go
there.
places.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah. So, if I take it correctly, the Chowking ad was the first paid gig that you had,
Not
or
the
there.
first paid gig.
Mm.
Not the first paid gig, but it's the gig that sort of became my calling card.
Mm.
So, okay, he did this. Okay, maybe he can do this. Maybe he can do this. Maybe he can do this.
Okay.
And by the blessings, sa awan ng Diyos, it things started getting approved, and that's where I sort of built my portfolio.
I see. Do you still remember your very first VO that was paid?
That was paid. I remember it was a well, the project that comes to mind is, it was actually a political ad, because I came into sound design at the during uh the 2010 elections, and I was a character voice for one of the candidates. And
Mm.
I think, and I'm not sure if I want to go go beyond that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see. Um, Transitioning from a sound engineer to a VO, how was that transition for you? Was it easy?
It was actually very easy, because as a sound engineer, I feel very lucky, because one, how I knew uh how voiceovers did their delivery, and I knew how sound, because I had a when because if you're a sound engineer, of course you're the one manning the the equipment, and voiceovers come in and they do their deliveries, and in a way, I guess through a very informal kind of osmosis, that's how I sort of learned how to become a voiceover, by
Mm.
copying people's licks.
Mm.
So, and then secondly, because I'm a sound engineer, and a sound engineer is, you can think of a sound engineer as kind of like the guy that everyone has to talk to when they're in the booth. You're the one manning the booth. So I talked to I worked with producers, I worked with creatives, I worked with clients, and of course I worked with voice talents and musicians and singers. So uh, I feel like that really helped inform my way of talking to the people that we work with.
Mm.
So because I know because I feel like I have a unique insight into how they think and what they want. And everyone wants a different thing.
Yeah, let's go to the latest project that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
That you can share with us, because I know there's a lot that probably aren't for public consumption yet. But What was the latest that you can share with us?
I don't remember. I've done some projects during the pandemic, but unfortunately, I don't know which ones sort of made it. So I can't really share any of those projects with confidence right now. But uh, I remember that I did a recent Cornetto commercial. This was early March.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was a Cornetto commercial, a Selecta Cornetto commercial.
Okay. At this point, I would like to ask you if maybe you can give us a delivery of how that Cornetto commercial went.
Okay. Well, Cornetto commercials tend to sound pretty very similar, so I'll just give you guys a like the general template of how it sounds like. So 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 it starts out with like a peong. Hanggang saan naabot ang 20 pesos mo? And then the scene sort of plays out, and then it's funny, and then it usually goes something like, for 20 pesos, pakiligin siya with new Cornetto Mango Tango. And then creamy mango ice cream with a crunchy chocolate tip. Something like that.
Awesome. That was
Yeah.
spot on.
Yeah.
Galing. Yeah. So you're the RiteMED guy. You're
Yeah.
the Jollibee Valentine series guy.
Yeah.
And also the Cornetto guy. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
what are your favorite projects that you've been involved with?
I really like the singing projects, but my current favorite, my what I would consider my current magnum opus is the Jollibee Valentine series project that I
Mm,
did.
mm.
That project really opened a lot of doors for me professionally, as well as like as a voice artist. It's like it really helped me expand my range.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, what was really nice about it was that it it was a break. It was a clear break, at least to me. It was a clear break to the commercials that I would normally get, which is if I may get a little technical with the deliveries. I usually get commercials that are very energetic and very what they would call very announcer like.
Mm.
So the Cornetto not the Cornetto, the Jollibee project rather, uh was a project that didn't really have a template to it,
Okay.
because usually a lot of commercials, they have a template that you kind of just follow. But for this project, it was a lot of it really put demands to the acting ability that I had. It really put it to the test,
Mm.
because you couldn't rely on the typical deliveries of da 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 da.
Yeah.
It's very diba? Commercials in the Philippines are very much like that, but with the Jollibee commercial, you had to do it out of pure feeling. I had to really internalize the story. uh I had to let it break my heart. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, that to put it dramatically, I had to really let it break my heart to really pull it off.
Yeah. That was a very dramatic commercial, I'd have to say.
Yeah,
And
it believe me, dude. I remember that commercial. I remember that day. I remember it was a very, very different commercial, because at the time, because when I went into the studio, the producer, Marielle, shout out to Marielle Cruz, um, told me, and when I came in, hi Jonah, and I was like, hey Marielle, how are you? And then the first thing she asked me was, so Jonah, how is your emotional state today? Oh my gosh. So there. And then that's when I knew that that's when, and in that instant, I already knew that this was going to be a very different commercial. And
mm,
as we were going through that commercial, it was very, you could tell that we were just reading the storyboard of the commercial, and we were already collapsing in our chairs, like, oh my god, do we have to do this? Like, it was so painful.
Yeah.
And that's when we knew. Even then, we knew that commercial was special.
Yeah. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of I'd like to say skill that goes into the delivery of that commercial, or for a lot of commercials that you've done. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I want to ask how you were able to see yourself from as a beginner, and now that, I mean, I know, or I don't know how voice actors would categorize themselves, because it's as Robbie said, it's a lot of being able to humanize yourself in the delivery, and there's
Mm-hmm.
really no scale, so to speak, of being good or bad. But for you, as someone who's been in the industry for a while, uh, how would you say that you've become, or how did you get so good? Is basically what I'm trying to ask.
First of all, you're very kind. Thank you. And well, whatever skill I've acquired was acquired actually just through. There wasn't really a school that you could follow. There wasn't really. You really just have to. You really had to go with what you know. And what I mean by that is, like, when we say voice actor, it's really that. It's acting with your voice. And the things that make you a good a good voice actor are the things that make you a good actor. So you draw from experience, you draw from what you hear, what you see, uh you draw from your own personality. So that's why a lot of voice that's why, let's say, for instance, I have a lot of friends in the voice acting industry, and our voices sound very similar. Yet we get very different voice acting jobs, because it's not just the voice that's the factor. The that you have to that people have to factor in. It's the personality, it's uh it's the upbringing, it's the interest, and it shows when you do your voice sample or your voice file.
Mm,
So yeah, though I guess to answer your question directly, the things that helped me become a better voice actor were I took acting lessons. That was one. I took some some, some workshops. I took some workshops here and there. Being a singer also helps, because it helps you with your intonation, because people can get very because producers can get very specific about that, and it helps to have a good ear when it
mm,
comes to that. And just general consumption of media. So if you have to be this certain character, it'll help if you've seen a similar character to that, like if you've watched it maybe in a cartoon or in a series. So yeah.
yeah. Just just knowing what's out there gives you a good
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
of what's accepted in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's you don't even think of it like you don't parang it doesn't factor into my thought process,
Mm,
like, oh, this it must be this way, it must be this way. All I think of in my mind, now that actually this is the first time I'm thinking about it consciously. When you come in with what you know, and they will ask you, and a producer or a client will ask you will ask of you something, and you will try to and I just try to give it to them in the manner in which I know how. So for example, they ask me to do what is a sensitive empathetic take. So what is sense so when that information comes to you, that direction comes to you, you just subconsciously ask yourself, so what is sensitive to you? What is empathetic for you? And that's what comes out. So our concept, for instance, both of us, our concepts of being sensitive and being empathetic are expressed in very different ways. And that's what makes me unique and you unique.
mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Thinking about how I listen to commercials, are you the same? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes don't even um, notice the other elements of the commercial anymore, and I just listen to the voice. Is that something that happens to you as well?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's I mean, well, I don't consciously do it, but sometimes when I listen to the radio or when YouTube decides to pop
Yeah.
in a commercial in the middle of my video, yeah, I mean, you just pay attention. You pay attention. So, for instance, there are times when I don't know why, but let's say a commercial from another country comes in, and then you start seeing the differences. Like, for example, like or maybe not on YouTube, but for example, like I go to you go to another country, you go to Hong Kong, you go to Singapore, you go to anywhere else,
Mm.
and then you listen to the way they speak English, and it's very different. I mean, their idea of energetic is very different
Mm.
from our idea of energetic. So, for instance, in the US, what they consider energetic is very, very mellow compared to ours.
Okay.
Things like that. So, for instance, like if I'm doing this right now, if I'm talking to you like this, to them that seems to them. I mean, based on what I've seen, that already seems like you're shouting at them.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. So, because us as Filipinos, we're very. If you listen to, let's say, uh, our language is it's a lot more animated. We talk to each other in a much more animated way. So our
Yeah.
baseline of soft and loud are
Yeah.
much higher. So let's say if a foreign if let's say maybe, I'm not to generalize, but let's say if an American, this is their range, this is soft and this is screaming,
Yeah.
maybe for us it's this. So
Got
you
you.
have the screamy commercials and diba?
Yeah. Which for them might be like, what is this? It's so
Yeah, and that to them that might be, take this guy to an insane asylum. He's crazy,
this is
diba? But to us, it's
aggression.
just normal. Yeah, it's aggression. It's stay away from me,
Yeah.
diba? Yeah, it's very different.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
So, I want to go to for beginners, right?
Hmm.
What are the tips for starting out in this industry for you?
Uh, uh, to quote uh, to quote the philosopher Ariel from The Little Mermaid, you just gotta be where the people are.
Okay.
You gotta be where they are. So that involves going to studios where they do work like that. That involves just getting yourself out there, and and you you try to, let's say, the most important thing that a beginner can have is a portfolio. So you build a portfolio. So the first thing you need to do is to build your portfolio. Now, the natural question there is, but what if I don't have work yet? What if I do? What do I do if I don't have any, if I don't have I've never had a paid gig? So what do I do? Well, you can start by copying a commercial. Like, take a popular commercial, and then copy it or have your own spin to it, and make sure that the things the comp your the portfolio, the body of work that you're compiling is as diverse as possible. Because in voice acting, to me at least, it's really a game of how many deliveries you can do. Paramihan to. So the more skills you have, the more diversity you have versatility you have when it comes to your voice and your delivery and your acting skill and your skills in general, the more work you'll have.
Mm. You mentioned about being where the people are going, getting yourself out there. But when I know that's like an internal gauge, right? But for
Mhm.
you, when is it a right the right time to put yourself out there? When do you know for yourself that you're ready to be out there?
Right now.
Okay.
Right now. There's no gate. There's no passing mark. there's no internal scorecard. There's no fictional scorecard saying, "Oh, I have enough skill to be a voice talent. Let's do it." You just have to do it and see where it takes you. And you just have to keep asking questions, and you have to you have to always be curious and not be embarrassed to fail, and not be, what do you call this? Not not be shy,
Mm.
because it starts there. I will be the first to say that my journey, I've been very lucky, because I pretty much had like an inside track, because I started out as a sound engineer, and eventually, and producers knew me. But if you don't have that, but if that's not something you have, uh, maybe you can just start by talking with people, asking around. Hey, do you know this? Do you know this? Do you know? Do you know someone in the industry? Do you know someone in the industry? And maybe that friend of a friend of a friend can invite you to try out your voice in a commercial, or maybe you can offer to sit in,
Mm.
ask to sit in a recording session. That's really the best way to learn.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think about the line of thought that says that sometimes you only have one chance to really be heard by a certain caster or a certain client, and if you do, basically if you don't make a good first impression, you'll be remembered for being that unprepared guy.
Um, I think there is some truth to that. Uh, there is some truth to that. Mm, I guess to help mitigate that, I would say that as much as possible, you kind of work your way up towards the quote unquote big leagues. So you start out, maybe it's just like any, I guess it's just like any other kind of business or freelancer work. You start out doing it for free, just to build up your portfolio, and then eventually you work your way up to bigger and bigger clients. So, and that's what I did. I mean, I I went through a lot of like I went through a lot of how do I say it? A lot of adventures when it
Okay.
comes to that. And the adventures were not always, they were, some were pleasant and some were not pleasant, but every time I learned. And that's how you, and that's pretty much how you learn. Like you just get there. You just get in there.
Yeah. Do you think anyone can start a career in voice acting?
Mm, maybe not. Maybe not everyone. Uh, I think you need to have a solid. I think it really helps to have a solid performing background in performance.
Hmm.
So, or some sort. Yeah, it could be maybe maybe you give speeches, or maybe you're a radio DJ. Well, you don't necessarily have to be a radio DJ, or maybe yeah, a performing background. Maybe you're an actor, a singer. It really helps, because that indirectly indirectly trains you to become a better voice talent. So if you really want to get in there, start performing.
Okay.
Start performing.
What about the timing though? Right now, it's well, the studios are not really available. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Most of the work is being required to be done at home. What do you think about the timing of starting a career in voiceover?
I mean, the only thing I can really think, what comes to mind there is, kung gusto mo'y paraan. You
Okay.
just, you kind of just do it. If you're really bent on getting into it, you will find a way. And I'm not gonna pretend, and say, oh wow, it's easy to do. No, because it's not. It requires some sort of investment. You have, if you're starting from scratch, you have to buy a mic, you have to learn how to use that mic, you have to invest in good equipment, you have to network, you have to get yourself out there. Maybe you can start online, stuff like that. There's really no, timing doesn't really factor in. The best time, I honestly think the best time is now. Actually, the best time was yesterday.
The second
Yeah.
best time is now. Just like
Yeah. Second
investing.
best time is now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to keep, because learning is, you just have to learn. You have to learn and learn. Never stop learning. So, and learning is free. If you do it right, learning is free. So why not start now?
Okay. Personally, for you, what's your motivation for continuing to do voice acting?
It's a very, it's a very fulfilling job. It helps me. It helps me stay sharp. It helps me stay sharp. Personally, I think of myself as a musician first, but voice acting helps me stay sharp. It helps me keep my options open. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because there's so many things that are demanded of you. It doesn't seem like much, but it may not seem like much to maybe a layperson or to the naked eye, but there is there's so a lot is demanded of you performance wise as a voice actor. You have to be a good actor. You have to know your intonations. It's a skill. It's a skill.
Mm.
So that's what keeps me going.
Would you say that's also the best thing about voice acting, that it keeps you sharp?
For me, it is. For me, it is. Yeah, but that's just me. I mean, ask 1,000 voice talents, you'll get 1,000 different answers.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So right now, I wanna let's talk about stats.
Okay.
What equipment are you currently using?
Right now, I am using an AKG C214, that microphone, which I bought from Singapore. I'm using a Focusrite, a Scarlett 212. Is it 212 or 2i2? 2i2 from which I bought locally, and I'm using a laptop. I'm using, well, right now, a gaming laptop,
Okay.
which is a double, which doubly benefits me because I can work and play at the same time.
Yeah. Mixing work and play, huh?
Yes.
What about your recording software?
My current recording software is Studio One. The reason why I got into that is because as a sound engineer, I was used to using Pro Tools, and my friend said, and my sound engineering friend said that Studio One was the closest to using Pro Tools in terms of how it works, how it runs, the interface, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I am studying how to use Ableton, which I think coincides with my purposes right now, because Ableton is a very effective music It's a very effective music making software. I mean, it's for modern music.
Okay. For your
Yeah.
equipment, like the mic, how did you um, come? How did you decide on it?
Mm, it's I decided on it because I used because when I was a sound engineer, I used the more expensive cousin of this mic, which is the 414.
Mm,
And historically, when I try to remember how I sounded then, and I sounded pretty good. Uh so the so I got I got its like cheaper cousin,
okay.
and it's worked for me so far. In terms of coming to conclusions about equipment, when it comes to microphones, there's really no what makes it challenging is that there's really no one answer. Like, the reason why there are so many microphones out there is because each microphone has its own character. Each microphone has its own character, and it's like it's and one microphone, like for example, this microphone, I think sounds pretty good to me, but it may not necessarily sound good for you or to someone else.
Yeah.
So there's really a lot of trial. Unfortunately, there's a lot of trial and error that goes with that. That
Yeah.
goes with that. Yeah.
Okay. For those who are starting out, when do you think is it a good time to invest in the software, the equipment?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you today you decided on becoming a voice actor, should you right off the gate invest in these things, or is there like a train of thought that you follow?
There is I think there is a baseline of what you have to invest in. There's a certain quality level that you have to sort of meet when it comes to equipment, because like recording just in your cell phone or with your earphone mics,
Oh, Mike,
no
yeah.
bueno. It's just not gonna work. It's really
Mhm.
just not gonna work. And people have told me this, like, they can't get you, because there are a lot of voice talents right now that they can't get because they don't have equipment. But at the same time, you don't have to like spend, anything beyond your means. Like, you don't have to buy the most sophisticated microphone in the world. You don't need the most sophisticated DAW or the most sophisticated interface, or maybe even not even the most sophisticated computer. You just go with what you can afford. Go with what you go with what you can afford. So if you what you can in my opinion, if what you have is a USB mic and then a bunch of acoustic foam that you can use to treat your room, and maybe a basic free DAW that's very basic, something like Reaper, or there's a lot of free versions of, let's say, Studio One. Studio One has a free version. There's a lot of freeware there. So just choose one.
Mhm.
Just choose one. Just choose a mic. Go do your research. There are some mic there are microphones that usually make it consistently to, like, best microphone under $100,
Yeah.
and then just run with it, and then just ask around and go. And then once you have that and you're starting to get more work, take it from there. Think of
Okay.
it like a business. You start with you start you basically you make you my opinion there is, make the investment the cheapest investment that allows you to start to get going, and then take it from there.
Okay. Yeah. It's a good
Yeah.
tip. So now that we're basically still under, quarantine, um, do you end up directing yourself in some projects?
Oh, absolutely. Right now, yes, because um it's not very common now for producers to sit in your recording.
Mhm.
It's just a preference thing. So so right now I tend to ask a lot more questions to the casters that get me and to the producers that get me, because it's very different. It's actually quite challenging to try and get the delivery that that particular ad needs, because, like you and me, like, for example, going back to our sensitive and empathetic direction, uh when you record in a studio and everyone is there, the engineer is there and the producer is there, it's a melding of the minds, because you have your concept of empathetic. I Like, for example, let's say I'm recording, I have my concept, the producer has his or her concept, the engineer has their concept, and you sort of come together. And that's what happens when directions are given to you. You come together to this
Yeah.
conclusion that
Right.
hopefully is equitable to all of you.
What's are there guidelines or points that you can share on the proper way of self-directing?
uh the proper way of self-directing.
Or maybe how do you know if it's a good take, so to speak?
You have to the way I determine that is, I kind of have to draw from my own experience. So, for example, uh, for example, if it's this particular project, for example, if it's a cornetto project, I kind of know what the boundaries, the template of cornetto is,
Mhm.
and if I know the producer, I'll figure out, okay, this producer wants this certain thing in their commercials, and this certain level of clarity. And once you have that, you just keep making deliveries until you just keep delivering recording deliveries until you kind of run the gamut of that entire template. Because when you record, you're not just recording one delivery. You're recording a range, so
Okay.
that you give your producer, the way the producers always talk about it is para may bala sila. So if their client asks for this kind of range, if this kind of delivery as opposed to what they presented, okay, I have this, I have this, I have this. So it's all a matter of, I guess one thing that I can tell fellow voice talents to do when they're self-directing is give them as wide a range as you can, and as wide a range as necessary.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
What's the most important thing to ensure a good delivery?
A good delivery. First of all, your miking technique has to be solid. So plosives like no bueno. That's a sound engineer will cut. A sound engineer will not consider that, even if it's a good delivery. It's basically you have to make sure that your technicals are first. The first thing you have to do is make sure that the technical aspects are covered. So in your room, is there noise? For example, in our room we have a clock. I take out that clock when I record. So right now there's no clock.
Okay.
Things like that. Is there noise outside? How is your mic placement? Do you have your levels correct? Are you distorting?
Mhm.
Do you have is your microphone is your voice leaking out of your microphone? Cover all that first.
Okay.
Cover all that first, and only then do you start to live. Only then can you think about making the correct deliveries. And of course, you after that you take care of yourself. Make sure you have water. Make sure you're warmed up. Stuff
Mhm.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go into more of maybe questions that newbies would want to know about, or people who are thinking about getting into it.
Okay.
Can you earn a decent living as a voice actor?
Yes. Yes. Yes, you can. It just takes a lot of I mean, in the beginning it takes a lot of diligence. It's kind of like any business. It's kind of like any business wherein at the start the effort curve is like at the start it has to be super 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 effort. And if by some combination of hard work and luck you manage to quote unquote break through, it gets a little easier. And then you sort of just maintain or and grow and grow and grow. It's not as intense as the first part.
So, like, in a week, how much time do you devote to voice acting?
Um Not a lot. That's another thing that I really like about voice acting. It's not time intensive. It's not time intensive, so it allows you to free up yourself to other things. Uh, yeah, yeah. Now that there's a pandemic, of course, it's not as it's not as busy as I'm normally used to.
Mhm.
But fortunately, there's still some work. There's still some work coming in, and at this point, I just stay ready.
Okay. What do you do with the rest of your time, since um, it's not that time intensive as you mentioned?
Mm-hmm. Well, I sort of well, I just go through my day. So I right now I'm doing a lot of meditation.
Okay.
Uh, I cook for my wife, stuff like that. I read books. You just watch because that's the nice thing about that's sort of the nice thing about having an artistic career. Everything that you do in your life can be used as information to inform your artistry. Your artistry. I mean, for example, a songwriter. When a songwriter writes a song, they didn't do some kind of songwriting workout. Though there is some kind of though I guess someone has that. But songwriters, for instance, they draw from their life. They draw from, let's say, in the case of maybe Taylor Swift, she draws from her breakups and her relationships. It's I mean, but she doesn't. But I don't think she's out there going, okay, today I will hook up with so and so in order to do research for a song. That's
Right.
not how it works.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with voice. It's the same thing with voice acting. It's the same thing with any sort of artistic venture.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Jonah, I want to ask, how important is your voice to you?
Very. It's given me everything that I have right
Very.
now. Very. I mean, it's given me everything that I have right now. So I mean, I yeah. I mean, it's super important. It's helped me, have a career. It's helped me have fortunately a very comfortable life. It's also helped me get through tough times and get through and learn about things because it helps me get through tough times when I have when I have trouble. I sing.
Mm,
Uh, the way I understand music is mostly through my voice because that's kind of like my first instrument.
mm.
So I mean, for me, it's kind of like it's like a sixth sense or a seventh sense, however
Okay.
many senses you think we already have.
Yeah. Kind of like maybe unlocking they say you only use 10% of your brain, right? So it's kind of like unlocking the rest of your brain when you're using your voice, I guess.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. It's another way of looking and experiencing the world for me.
Mm,
That sounds very philosophical and very spiritual, but that's just how I feel about it.
okay. Message to aspiring voice actors.
Just go. Just go for it. Just go
Nice.
for it.
I like it.
All the information that you need is out there and it's a Google search away. And all the people that you might need to meet, there is a way to meet them. It might be harder for some, it might be easier for some, but there is a way. So just go for it.
All right. Awesome. With that, I want to thank you, Jonah, for taking the time again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Um,
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me.
yeah, man. Likewise, likewise. Do you have any announcements or maybe social media accounts you want to share?
Oh, okay. If you guys want to get a sample of my, if there are any of you who are looking for a voiceover talent, feel free to check out my portfolio at SoundCloud. So it's just soundcloud.com/Jona Paculan voiceovers. That's JONA PACULAN voiceovers. And you can also catch my band on Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify. So, and whatever streaming service you use. So that's Swallowed by the Whale. Just search Swallowed by the Whale. Oh, and we're on YouTube too.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jonah. It was a pleasure having you. Look forward to seeing you in the waiting rooms again of future projects, hopefully, in the studios.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jona Paculan, and I'm living the mic life.
Thank you for watching this episode. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you on the next one.